invested money. The property value for 2 years, it's nothing to someone that's running it as a commercial business, okay? Residential is residential. We put value, we've worked hard, our retirement is in our property. If I'm gonna sell my house in 1 year, this matters to me. It's not temporary to me, it's affecting me. And I'm just asking on behalf of everybody in this room that you take all of that into consideration, because if it were you, you know, we can't just be rubber stamping this. And there would be no need to have the regulation if we're not really truly gonna stick with what the regulation is. And I'm asking how the future use of this property and it being temporary meets the criteria. I'm asking you to think of that when you look at that, because we don't believe that it does.
Robert Mann, 15 Meadow Drive. I wanted to give you this for the Portertown Farm Road measurements. That's what a 10-wheel dump truck requires. I know Mr. Santos on your board had said he doesn't know any illegal activity of bringing those trucks down that road, but it's a double-lined road. The minute they cross that double line with a 10-wheel dump truck or any other truck or any car, they can be pulled over. They've broken the law. Just like a drunk driver crosses a double yellow line. It's against the law. I want to bring up a few things that I just brought up, the legality of the double line. These the entities that have purchased this property and want to mine this property are businesses. He said it could not be for profit. I mean, 110,000 cubic yards. I don't know if they're trucking it down the street to put it in their own backyard, but obviously it's going to be processed and sold, and they're going to make money on it. That's for profit. I also read in the regulations, I don't know where it was, but I know that in here it says you may require, which means you don't have to, but you may require them to actually bond some money up for roads, for the damages they do to the roads. You can do that. It is in the regulations. And again, I'm going to read Section 2, criteria for special permits. And I ask all of you to look in Article 8 and find where gravel mining is listed in your regulations under Article 8. The Commission shall approve a special permit following due procedure when the Commission has found that the proposed use would satisfy all appropriate requirements listed in Article 8 and elsewhere in these regulations. And elsewhere means all of the regulations. That's the definition of and elsewhere in your definitions. And the Commission has also found that, and the things that they had read, the proposed use is in harmony with the zoning regulations and current plans adopted by the Commission. The proposed use will not adversely affect the health and safety of residents, such as this woman over here with the son that's sick, or workers in the area. D, I'm sorry. The streets serving the proposed use shall be adequate and safely carry the vehicular traffic generated by the proposed activity without reduction of street capacities. I think we've proven that. No safety hazards, such as reduced sight distances or hazardous street or driveway connections, would be imposed. Now, I have another one to say about this. E. Has anybody ever driven to the end of Spicer Road and tried to take a left turn?
Yeah, it's terrible.
It is not safe to take a left turn off of Spicer Road with a big truck like this. That's another thing. That's why this permit should be denied, in my opinion. There's no direction they can go safely. F. The proposed use is in harmony with the neighborhood's established character and development patterns. Now, the neighborhood's established right now. It doesn't mean, established means now. It doesn't mean 25 years ago when they gravel mined up the street and it's grown grass and it's made itself better again than it was when it was first excavated. Established character. My last thing, you read that letter from Carolyn Werge. I believe that property is not the amount of acreage she said it is, because it's grown and it's got more. It has more property on it than that 123 acre parcel. It's now behind the houses right across the street from this proposed site is also part of Wyndham Land Trust land, and that's been added. And that's why we had said 800 feet, because the new land that was added to that 123 acres is right behind some of the people, the Morawski family that lives there. Right, their backyard is Wyndham Land Trust land. And I thank you for your time.
Gail Arsenault once again, 157 Spicer Road. Gravel mining, we believe, is at a pivotal point in Thompson. As As a town, we are either going to live by the mission and purpose outlined in the Thompson Plans for Conservation and Development, or we are going to view them as mere advisory documents put forth to make us look good and forge ahead to ravage our neighborhoods by stripping everything that time and history have created. Americans have prospered by having a secure sense of the control of property, along with a strong and solid sense of place. These two driving forces have created the farmlands, maintained the water resources, beautified the neighborhoods by bringing us to where we are today. Gravel mining can coexist with this paradigm, but it needs to be part of a well-thought-out plan. It is a commercial and industrial enterprise and needs to be relegated to those parts of town zoned appropriately for this purpose. A residential neighborhood where people walk and bike the roads for scenic purposes is not the place. In our research, and we did a lot of research of the applications for this project, both inland wetlands and P&Z, we have uncovered many practices that threaten our control of property, both as a citizenry and as a commission and a town. We have found many threats to the destruction of our sense of place. We have shared all of these irregularities, inconsistencies, and incongruities with you during the hearings conducted over the past few months. Tonight is not the end for us, but the beginning of creating a strong force to keep gravel mining where it belongs within the future plan for this town. Tonight we're asking the commission, based on all of our findings and discoveries, supported by the signatures of 296 Thompson citizens, which I will give to you in the petition, that this commission declare a moratorium on gravel mining until the town has an opportunity to place it where it belongs in the bigger plan of town development. And that this commission vote to deny application 1907 based on these findings. Thank you.
Gary Kettle, 18 Wilsonville Road, North Cloverdale. I'm new to this whole process here, but I come from Massachusetts. And when the applicant submits new information dated today, the public hasn't had a chance to look at it. So I respectfully ask that the public hearing be continued until we have a chance to review the plans. So, I mean, I just don't see how somebody can come in and submit plans and then nobody's had a chance to verify it, you know, whatever. So I don't know what your timeline is, but I mean, if new information is being submitted, I think it should be continued.
Follow-up as to my son's health. Currently, he has gone 10 weeks without an asthma attack or issue. It has warranted an emergency room visit, which is a win for me. 10 weeks. I will be on him, like right on the rest of my life. But that's what he's currently on. Several inhalers and nebulizer treatments daily is working with his allergy medication. He is upcoming seeing an allergist and a pulmonologist. He has to be 3 to be able to do that. Now, my allergies have been killing me, so what's working right now is working right now with what has been happening in the environment around us. He gets to play outside. He gets to do those things. So if and when that changes, I will be writing you and emailing you and calling all of you, telling you to, like, please help my child. Because right now he's doing okay. It's taken 2.5 years, but he's doing okay. And I drove down the road today and I saw it, and it makes me sad that it's gonna be dirt. It's beautiful. When we left these meetings in the past, there's deer there almost every night. There's bunnies everywhere, you know. There's a huge fox that lives in Gary's backyard. I'm sure it goes over there. It's massive. It's gotta be thriving. This is a living, breathing, working ecosystem. And like she said, it can absolutely have a rightful place, and it absolutely can have fabulous, you know, working hand in hand once it's done the right way. I'm not sure that this is the right way for this area. It's just not, it doesn't seem right. That sodium chloride stuff causes seizures, for God's sake. Like, who looks into that? Just because it's federally approved, again, doesn't mean that it's safe. Safe to spread, safe to put. I will pay to have my well tested today, well, probably next week. I will be monitoring it for leptospirosis, giardia. There's tons, hundreds of things that can get disturbed in the dirt, that just disperse. They can't control it. I'm not expecting them to, but I'm expecting you to hold them accountable for those things when they happen, if they happen. Again, I might not have like a fancy degree, but I've worked in parasitology with animals, with humans, for 20 years. These things have bigger impacts than just this dirt. It spreads. They all of it works hand in hand. Those animals across the street absolutely can be on that property. It's just a matter of finding them. I looked into it. It costs thousands of dollars to have somebody sit on a property and look for that stuff. I have several biomedical engineers friends. I beg. They still need money. Everybody needs money. That's what they do. We don't have it to give them. It can be done, and it can be done on that property, and it can be done the right way. I don't think that this is right.
So, Pleasure Road, just to add, Mr. DeSantos, is it?
Yes.
The count you got on the trucks is a plus, because there's other companies using these roads now. There's Bonds, there's other contractors hauling dirt and stuff up and down, trailer dumps, the triaxle trailer dumps, they're going down, so we've got a lot of trucks as it is. Right? That count's gonna add to what we already have.
Robert Lemieux, 480 Quadcom Farm Road again. They've already taken enough of our gravel. I mean, this, when they took from New Road, I know we can't talk about it, they were already moving down the road. They weren't trying to pull out of, I mean, you got corners, there's shop corners everywhere over there. And people do not drive slow. We don't have the police. When these guys are pulling out like that, and one of these guys comes around on these fast cars or dirt, street bikes, there's dirt bikes and four-wheelers flying around over there, you know? And like I said, we were measuring, almost got taken out by a guy on a bike. You don't even hear him coming. And there's no sight line when you go around those corners. So you just gotta remember that. You guys can say no to this one. They've already gotten all the other ones. Just one no. That's it.
And we also, I wanna say that we are, we're not saying that we can't, as Gail said, coexist. We're not saying that we don't want this to happen, but we don't want this particular piece of property to be caught up as the rest and just be, we did it before. This is a unique evaluation for the uniqueness of this location and for all the criteria that meets this very specific place. And it shouldn't be put in a bucket as all other. And we will work with the gravel miners, and we're not going away. That's all I can say, and we all agree on that.
So, John Dalton, East Thompson Road, I'll try to make this quick. I was not aware that we could bond money for road repairs. Last month, I projected that they pony up $42,000 a year for annual repairs, for road repairs. I think that we should seriously look into getting money in pocket money for the repairs for our roadways. I'm gonna touch just base on the park. Is there any way we can stop them on a Friday at noon? We have a lot of campers, we have a lot of out-of-towners that are gonna be traveling that road. If we can stop them at, if this is passed, stop their trucks on a Friday. For instance, if the July 4th is coming up, it's on a Thursday, have them do not mine on a Friday, or no trucks on a Friday. Whatever the holiday would be, have them not on Saturday, not on Sunday. If the holiday is on a Thursday, have them stop their operation for 4 days, and have them stop their operation on a Friday at noon. The Connecticut Environmental Public Health Tracking, they track the water at the state there. They posted on the site whether the park can be open or not on a Friday, and they do the water testing on a Monday. They do not test for all the things that you had mentioned, this young lady mentioned. However, we have to pony up money if we want additional testing done. And I suggest that we do that, and in the event there is a problem with water testing, we immediately shut down their mining, excluding the normal things that they normally test for. These are the additional things that this young lady has just mentioned. And they need to move the testing a little bit forward to the brook instead of the lake, because everything's gonna end up flowing towards the lake. I would highly recommend that we pay the additional out of the town expense, pay some additional money for testing. The psychological effect on all the people's wells, it's gonna cost, it's an average $300 every 6 months. I guarantee you, if I lived near that site and I had young children, I would be testing my well twice a year. And that's a lot of money we're asking for our residents to pay out of their pocket, especially those who have children. Maybe we, as the town, should pay for their testing, or we should ask them to give 150, to have 200 wells tested. It would be approximately $180,000 annually. And I think that we should get the money from them, because the psychological effect on all of us is just, it's troubling, it's really troubling. Yes, they have dotted their T's and crossed their I's, either way, you know what I'm saying? But they did it at the expense of wetlands failing to do their work. Wetlands failed on the initial walk. How can those who were here, we saw the initial walk, they walked the perimeter for maybe 30 feet, and they said all is good. They did not walk in the interior. I'm bothered by that. I'm really bothered by that. And shame on this company for not questioning or stopping our wetlands commissioner and saying, hey, well, let's do this right. We need to walk the property, and they didn't. Now, what's going to happen is, when the lawsuits come, if they do, we don't even have a budget that's passed yet. Who's going to pay for this lawsuit? Does it come out of our pocket, the taxpayers, or does it come out of their pocket? I don't know who they would sue. Maybe you can tell me, but I'm worried about all this happening because we're just volunteers, and many of us have failed. It's a lot of documents. You have a lot to cover. You have a lot on your plate, and you could slip up and not do something, but I know for a fact an attorney can find an error in your work as well as wetlands, and they're going to stab us in the back, and we, the taxpayers, are going to get shafted over this. I suggest put a moratorium on this, or we study this for another 6 months, because there's a lot of issues here that our town officials have failed to do. One last thing. The board members that are sitting here, all of you, since 2014, have any of you seen a Rawson truck at our facilities, maintenance facilities, gas pumps, getting a repair or gassing up, or any truck that has been contracted out to Rawson? Have any of you seen one of those trucks on our property? If you have, please answer up that you have, or you don't have to answer no. I'm assuming that if you don't answer, the answer is no. But have any of you ever seen a Rawson truck since 2014 on our town facilities gassing up or getting a repair at our facility? I'm looking at each and every one of you, and the answer is no. Is that fair to say? Thank you very much.
Can we request that regarding the citizen comment that Attorney Francis' letter be read into the record?
Certainly.
This is new material, and again, I agree with the gentleman to my left that none of us have had the ability to look at these plans again. And that is not right, it's not fair. It puts us in a compromised position, and it puts them in an advantageous position. Because they are coming in and on 6/24, they are putting out a whole, basically a restructured plan. Now, I had a little time to go up there in this, but I did not have enough time that was sufficient. However, I need to refer to you in my document packet that I presented to you, that from page 7 through page 12, I found and looked at their site development plan. And if you look at Article 8, special permit procedures, section 4, development plan. If you wouldn't mind, all of you just looking at that, so I don't have to really go into detail. It states that the following information shall appear on the site development plan, and it goes through a number of items. I've looked with this and it article on the plan, and these deficiencies are still present. So therefore, that plan that exists up there does not comply with the zoning requirements and is in direct violation of the zoning requirements based on the information here. So I would ask you to please look at that, because with that still there, that you cannot, the permit must be denied at this point. There needs to be more time. The next item is, again, I know Mr. Santos said regulations black and white, and actually I agree with you. And in the black and white regulation under Article 9, Special Section, Section 5, General Conditions, it is clearly stated that the bottom of the excavation shall be 8 feet from the ground water table. Now, I looked at these regulations, and nowhere did I see that the removal that the applicant says in terms of excavating material within that 8 feet is, and returning to grades, restored grades provide at least an 8-foot of separation to the groundwater table. It's not in your regulation, so are we creating new regulations today? I need to know that. Also, in that plan, under the site development plan, there is verbiage that allows the applicant to over-excavate. Now, he's allowed to over-excavate under 3 items there, item 3, 9, and 8. Nowhere in the Town of Thompson zoning regulations does it state that an applicant may over-excavate. I don't see it, so are we creating new regulations today if we go and approve this application as is? Could you answer me, please? Also, nowhere in the Thompson zoning regulations does it state that, quote, clean mineral backfill is acceptable and is allowed to substitute for the required no excavation restriction of 8 feet over the ground water table. If we pass this permit, if you pass this permit today, are you creating a new regulation? Because that's what's in that site plan descriptor. So are we creating new zoning regulations today?
Is that a rhetorical question or?
Well, I don't know, because if you say that you are gonna accept that plan the way it is today, and I haven't even had an opportunity, none of these people in this room have had an opportunity to look at that again, and that is not right. But if you're going to now vote and say, that is fine, you have existing violations, so the T's and the I's, the T's have not been crossed and the I's still have not been crossed. And in voting for that, that's what it says. They can over-excavate, they can backfill, they can do all these things. So is that now a new zoning regulation, when your regulation clearly states the bottom of the excavation shall be 8 feet above the groundwater table? We don't even have an understanding of where that groundwater table is in the northern part of that excavation site, because there are 3 test pits that still don't have data.
Sally White, 308 East Thompson Road. My understanding is that the material that Dr. Godchik handed out to you earlier lays out a valid case for you legitimately denying the application. So that does ask a rhetorical question. What would be the motivation to approve it if you can legitimately deny it? And referencing this eloquent and passionate lady over here, there is no compelling reason above and beyond. There's no national security need for aggregate or gravel. There's no compelling need, even if it met everything. You still have the latitude to deny based on a number of other data points. Among those includes, again, the property value, which protecting a property value is a fundamental responsibility of town officials. Doing no harm to our property value should be a first consideration. It's a major element of your decision. Undisturbed earth and water courses equals undisturbed property value. Reevaluations are taking place this year on everyone's property. Should you choose to not factor in the impact on our property values, if excavations should take place, and over the course of a couple of years, logically, rationally, values are going to drop. Town revenue will drop. And the magnitude of the disruption related to values will impact what is our retirement asset, what may be our ability to refinance. It's gonna slow up lenders to consider equity loans that will most certainly negatively impact the sale of property short and long term. An outright need to sell because of the need to generate money for medical purposes or whatever, or job change, could be devastating. But you can avoid undermining our financial security and general welfare by denying. You can avoid undermining public safety, which is a very significant matter. Generally, I think they're gonna be hauling with the actual trailers as opposed to the straight rigs. And there is, speaking of the Harmony, which is another legitimate means of denying, let's face it, you're forever altering what is presently an intact beauty mark in East Thompson, of which not a whole lot. Some of them have been disturbed, and we'd like to retain the ones we have. Right now, we've got 11 acres of pastoral beauty there, versus the prospect of the removal of the intact natural nature. And it's gonna leave no amount of artificial reclamation can ever remedy what was the natural topography, the natural character, what was the natural plant and aquatic life, the water courses, which, by the way, every piece of water that passes through that property, Robbins Brook, connections with 5 Mile River, leaches out of there, goes into the stump. The stump goes into aquatic. The aquatic connects with the Connecticut River, which goes down into the Sound. It's one big connection. And again, I think the gentleman here spoke to the matter of the taxes. When I did my calculations, there were approximately 250 signatories to the petition, so there's many more. My calculations based at a very modest average of property tax at $4,500 a person, which is modest, came up to $1,125,000, but that was only 250 people. You've got nearly
300 almost.
Okay.
Yeah, more coming in.
So we're bumping up to 1.5 million. You compare that against the 2,200 in tax revenue for gravel removal, we the people dwarf that. And if you impact our property value, then it actually makes no sense. So if you have the means to deny, what in the world would motivate you to approve it? And we'd like to know, and we're due that. It really makes sense for good governance, for economic purposes, for harmony, for health, for safety, to deny the permit. And you have every rationale and legal standing to do that. So, and there's more people, as other people have said, nobody has given up. We're just learning, we're just getting momentum. They aren't going away. And the pivotal question, I think, is if you approve it, is it a win for the town or is it a loss? If you disapprove, it's certainly gonna be a win. But you've gotta keep these, you legitimately can deny it. So please do the best and the right thing for the overall welfare of the town and your fellow citizens.
Yes.
I also wanted to grab a few seconds. The sign that's in front of 363 Quarter Town Farm Road, it was up for the first hearing. It never received the second hearing date at all. It still doesn't have it today. There was a complaint made. They went out and remedied the situation by adding the third hearing date to it, but it still doesn't have the second date on it as of today, and the lettering on it is not 2 inches. So that's a violation also. Thank you.
I just want to thank the folks from Burrville that are here. In the first meeting, I mentioned that their town could be affected if there's a chemical spill or oil spill making its way through your town, which is valid and accurate. So thank you for coming, the guys that are here. Thank you.
Congrats on your win.
Oh, they that's awesome.
One more thing on stockpiling, it's a new item. It was originally addressed in the first meeting, and that's the stockpiling that would be used to reclaim the site, and it's a valuable commodity, okay? If I remember correctly, Mr. Rice did actually address that in the first hearing, and I really believe that it was determined that stockpiling, all of the material would remain on site. Because I actually, when we went into the slide presentation, I actually referenced that, and you have that as a document. In the course, again, continuing to research this, there is a email from the ZEO to David Held, and I quote, that she is asking also, I quote, "I know I asked you, but are you stockpiling product to sell on the property or just stockpiling for reclamation?" I really think that this needs to be answered.
I don't have, yeah, right. Well, it's in this. I see.
Because it's my understanding that this is just for sand and gravel, commercial. Now, are we gonna be selling loom on the property? I mean, what, can you answer that for me?
Mr. House?
There's no intention to remove topsoil or subsoil from the site, it's gonna be stockpiled for reclamation.
But I don't have that as a statement.
Well, he probably.
No, he's not. So he just stated it on the record in the public hearing.
Okay, so now we have a statement.
It's a matter of record.
The other thing that I need to bring up also is the permit application 1907 is industrial and commercial. Because in the ZEO review that they all provided to you on our slides, from our slide presentation, the ZEO states that this permit application 1907 is for the industrial, and it's in your packets, for the industrial activities, not construction activities. And she actually cites the definition of industrial activity is an activity classified as the standard industrial classification 10 through 14. Mining industry, including active or inactive mining operations that are not stabilized. The next comment is from the ZEO review is application 1907 applies for a gravel operation under the guidelines for a special permit for commercial purposes in the town of Thompson. I've gone through your zoning regulations. I do not see that in your zoning regulations. Nowhere in Thompson zoning regulation does it state that gravel removal can be used for commercial purposes. In fact, these regulations state this shall not include earth removal for the purpose of commercial sale. Nowhere in the Thompson zoning regulations for an RA80, which is zoned as a residential and agricultural district, does it state that industrial activities are allowed. Are we creating new zoning are we creating new zoning regs with a vote yes on this? Again.
So, if this actually gets approved, how do we get notified when in 6 months in they decide to change all of this? Do we have to come to every meeting and just wait to hear it come up, or do you send out notification? So like, it's all well and good that they have this plan in place or whatnot, but we all know from, of course, unfortunately, previous experience, that they can change plans and do more and extend things and get more deadlines and dig deeper and dig further and do other things. How do we get notified that that changes, if it does in fact change?
So the renewal occurs annually for gravel operations, so.
Is that from the first date or from when it's approved?
From when it's approved.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just gonna start in the back.
Mike Olson, 442 Quaddock Farm Road. I heard tonight for the first time, you're pulling out 110,000 yards, and you're coming.
Cubic yards.
Cubic yards. And you're bringing back in 25,000 cubic yards of toxic tailings, sludge, sediment. You're bringing it back on the site to fill in. How is this material, this silt? I'm not sure what, and is this stuff chemically toxic to the groundwater? Because I'm hearing we're gonna dig below groundwater, if not to it. So if, and I heard the attorney say that, yeah, we could go into that 8-foot disputed area, but we're gonna backfill it with this material, this 25,000 yards of possibly toxic sludge. And I say sludge because I've seen some of this type of stuff. It's washed, it might have chemicals like lime, concrete materials, etc. This stuff, this is what bothers me. You're not just taking out 110,000 yards. You're bringing in another 25,000 yards of stuff, which could affect our well water. And I could go on about the S-turn there. I won't. I'm concerned about the 25,000 yards brought back in. And I guess I heard that tonight.
James Clark, 113 Labby Road. If I recall correctly, is it 2 cents per yard that that the town is actually receiving, which equates to about what, 2,000? Let's just say $2,300. Okay. Well, I mean, this is kind of obvious, but it seems like this is quite a lot of headache just for a measly $2,300. Which, if you had 3 people that moved into the town, you'd get more in revenue just from 3 people moving into the town. I mean, that's it.
I also would like to let you know that the inland wetlands permit was applied for by Strategic on March 11th. Now, the inland wetlands meeting agenda was on the website on March 8th, and that was not on the agenda. And the inland wetlands meeting took place on March 12th, and it was added to the agenda during the meeting. And the minutes were not posted until March 26th, which alleviated the 14 days that the citizens could petition to have a meeting through inland wetlands. So, if I was just a private citizen looking at the agendas and to see if I would want to attend a meeting, if it was anything near me or in my neighborhood, I had no idea that that was being discussed at the March 12th meeting because it was added to the agenda then. And then the minutes were not posted until the 26th, which means I had no opportunity, I lost my 14-day window to petition for a hearing to even ask about that information. And I just wanted to know that happened.
Jennifer Burlingame, 480 Aquatic Town Farm. We are looking at all these dates. There are so many crazy things we have found. We have spent hundreds of hours and we will not stop. We are going to change the regulations in this town. If it means getting a whole new board, we will rally to do that. So I'm just telling you, it's not a threat, it's a promise. I promise you, we're making changes. This industry is flying under the radar with no regulations. And why should we suffer? It makes no sense. And I appreciate Charlene, is it Langblazes? You know, rah rah shush boom ba, how good they are on Raider Road. Do you live near Aquatic Town Farm Road?
We know a lot of people on Redden Road that aren't happy.
Yeah, those people aren't happy.